Hello, everyone. If you're listening, we're just going to give a couple minutes for more people to log in and to join us for this session. And um, once more people join us, we'll get started. Thank you so much for being here. Muchas gracias a todos los que están entrando. Vamos a esperar a que se conecten más personas. Vamos a dar un par de minutitos y en cuanto se conecten más personas podemos comenzar. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Okay, everyone, we are gonna get started. More people will join us in a little bit, I'm pretty sure. So let's start with saying that we are very glad that we were able to um, do this session. We've had a lot of things going on at the chamber. My name is Carla Colin. I am the program and membership manager for the Latina Chamber of Commerce of Boulder County. And I want to say that this session was scheduled in collaboration with Boulder County and other partners like the Small Business Development Center to make sure that we understand a topic that has been very trendy lately in the county. And we want to make sure that all members of the community understand what's going on with this topic. So we're gonna have interpretation. I want to make sure that everyone picks their language. If you are connected from a computer or a laptop, the interpretation globe is gonna show on the bottom of your screen, and then you're gonna pick your language. Please pick a language. Doesn't matter if you're bilingual. Make sure to pick a language because if you have questions later or if you want to talk, raise your hand. Interpreters will be able to communicate with you. If you're connected from a phone, there is 3 little dots at the bottom right side of your screen. Then you pick your language there and make sure that we have English and Spanish options available. So make sure that you pick the language that you prefer. And for those of you that are bilingual, like I said before, make sure to pick a language. Doesn't matter if you're connected from your phone or your laptop. And now I'm going to repeat this in Spanish. Para todos los que están conectados, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Por favor, elijan el idioma de su preferencia. Si están conectados desde una computadora, va a aparecer un globito en la parte de abajo que dice interpretación. Ustedes eligen inglés o español. Y si están conectados desde su celular, va a haber 3 puntitos en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y ahí es donde van a elegir la interpretación del idioma. Eligen su idioma, ya sea inglés o español, pero por favor no se queden sin elegir un canal. porque esto va a ayudar que si ustedes levantan su mano más tarde para hacer una pregunta, ustedes puedan escuchar a los intérpretes si tienen instrucciones para ustedes y que las intérpretes les puedan escuchar a ustedes de igual manera. Así es que vamos a empezar la interpretación. La sesión es en inglés con interpretación a español y cuando si ustedes prefieren hablar en español, va a haber interpretación al inglés de igual manera. Now we can choose our channels, English or Spanish, so please feel free to do that, and let's give it a couple seconds for everyone to choose their channels. And just as a reminder, this webinar is going to be recorded so we can see it online later. And also, we don't have a chat right now for this session, but we have the Q&A section where you can post your questions there, or we're going to have the opportunity later to raise your hand. Our technical assistance people are going to help us assign you as a panelist, and then you're going to be able to open your microphone and ask those questions. So if you have questions that you don't want to forget about, please feel free to put them on the chat or wait until you raise your hand and you get a turn to talk. Like I said before, my name is Carla Colin. I am the Program and Membership Manager for the Latino Chamber of Boulder County, and we are here for this session about minimum wage in Boulder County, and Commissioner Levy is the one that is gonna talk to us and explain all the things that we don't know about, that we've heard from many places, but now we're gonna listen on what's really happening in the county. So Commissioner Claire, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I do want to thank Carla Colin and the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Boulder County for partnering with Boulder County and the Small Business Development Center on these listening sessions and for facilitating today's session. I also want to thank my fellow commissioners, Marcia Lochumin and Ashley Stolzman, for joining this session. And I'm going to run through a few slides first before we get started, just to set the context for this conversation. So if we can move to the next slide. In 2019, the legislature passed a law that allows local governments to adopt a local minimum wage. And that law was very prescriptive in terms of the kinds of things that local governments were allowed to do. We are allowed to set what the wage can be, and it can only be a maximum of 15% above the state minimum wage for the first year in which we act. And then there's a limit of 15% per year above the previous year's wage going forward. We are allowed to consider a reduction in the minimum wage for unemancipated minors. The law requires us to include a tipped offset called a tipped credit of $3.02 an hour for tipped workers. But we are not allowed to exempt any businesses from the minimum wage. And that includes not being allowed to limit it to businesses that are a certain size or more. So you can see on the screen the kinds of things that we're allowed to consider, and they are very limited. Next slide. So Denver was the first local government to take advantage of this law, and in 2020, they adopted their own minimum wage. It went into effect on January 1st, 2020. And as you can see from this slide, for 2024, you'll see what the minimum wages will be for the state of Colorado, effective January 1st, the city and county of Denver, which will be $18.29 an hour, and then the city of Edgewater, which is the only other local government that has also taken advantage of this law. and they will have, theirs will go into effect on January 1st, and it will be $15.02 an hour. The City of Edgewater is planning to match up with the City and County of Denver over a period of years, and the increments are specified in their ordinance. The law limits us to doing this effective January 1st of any year, so we cannot take action in the middle of the year, and that's something that we don't have any flexibility on. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about, why are we taking this action at all, and why are we doing it now? So our decision on behalf of Boulder County to raise the minimum wage for workers who work in unincorporated Boulder County really goes back to the fact that we were hearing tremendous needs in unincorporated Boulder County among the lowest paid workers in the county in the face of rising costs. We have a series of family resource centers that serve some of our communities, our families that are especially challenged economically, and they're seeing unprecedented demand at their food banks. People are continuing to struggle to make their rent with the end of the federal emergency rental assistance program. And so in the face of this really unprecedented need, we decided that we needed to go ahead and act now. So we've made that decision to increase the minimum wage effective January 1st, 2024. The law requires the Department of Labor and Employment to do an analysis of the economic impact of an increase in the minimum wage. And their analysis of that was released this year, the 2023 report about the effect of Denver's minimum wage increase, shows that the unemployment rate in Denver actually dropped more than any of their comparable jurisdictions. And this was true even in the pandemic year when they did the first analysis. 2021 showed a larger drop in unemployment in Denver than in comparable jurisdictions. And it also showed that their sales tax revenues continued to grow at a greater pace than comparable local governments. So the Department of Labor and Employment's research did not show a negative impact of increase in the minimum wage on employment in the City and County of Denver. Next slide, please. So what we will be considering by ordinance later this year is a minimum wage that will start at $15.69 an hour, effective January 1st, 2024. And that what that means for tipped workers is that they would get a minimum of $12.67 an hour. And this will apply to all employees in Boulder County, unincorporated Boulder County, that work more than 4 hours per week in unincorporated Boulder County. Enforcement of the minimum wage law will be done by the Department of Labor and Employment, just as it is now. Next slide, please. So as you've probably heard, or you may have heard about, many of our local municipalities in Boulder County are having the same conversations that we were having about adopting a local minimum wage. They have decided to wait until January 1st, 2025 to take action. And one issue on which we're especially looking for input is related to what the long-term wage should be for Boulder County when we're able to get to a regional minimum wage that includes not only unincorporated Boulder County, but the municipalities within Boulder County. So, and then what our target should be over the long term before we revert to increases based on the consumer price index. And you can see 3 possible proposals for how to do this. These are by no means the only way to do it, but one would be to join with Denver's minimum wage after a certain number of years. In 2024, the Denver minimum wage will be $18.29 an hour. Another proposal would be for the minimum wage in Boulder County to be the same as the minimum of the wage that Boulder County has adopted as the livable wage for our employees. And you'll see on the screen here that no employee in Boulder County working hourly or at a salary rate earns less than $22.44 an hour. That will go up by 3.5% effective January 1st, 2024. But we could decide that the minimum wage should be the livable wage that Boulder County has adopted. The Self-Sufficiency Wage Coalition has made a proposal that we have increments of increase that would get us to $25 an hour by 2028. So those are three proposals that we would appreciate input on. And that brings me to the end of the slides that we prepared just to provide the context for this discussion. The final slide repeats what Carla said already, which is we'll take input through two different ways. You're welcome to use the raise hand button and ask your question yourself. You'll have to be sure to remember to unmute your microphone when the time comes, or the Q&A at the bottom of the screen is active and you're welcome to put your comment in there. So I will pass it back to Carla to kick us off and moderate this discussion.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Levy. And I want to say that we, the Latino Chamber has a couple of questions, but we want to give the opportunity and make sure that we are going to have enough time to answer any questions from the public. So I'm going to start asking those questions, but if anyone in the meantime has any follow-up questions or has more questions, please feel free to raise your hand or put them on the chat. And we have no hands raised right now, so we can start with the chamber questions. And so my first question, and these came from conversations with the small businesses during our cafecitos and networking events and conversations on group chats that we have. And this is something that concerns the small business owners. And the question is, small business often express concerns about the potential negative impact of minimum wage hikes on their operations. What measures or support system is the county considering to assist small businesses during this transition?
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's a discussion that the commissioners have had among ourselves. And while we haven't made any decisions on that, one thing that we've talked about is because the Small Business Development Center offers support to small businesses, the Latino Chamber. I know you have a lot of programs that you offer to small businesses to help them with challenges. That the best way for us to do that could be to provide funding to the Latino Chamber, to the Small Business Development Center, so that they can provide any sort of, if it's payroll technical assistance, different software, something like that, that is needed, or additional outreach and instructions about how to comply, that those would be the best resources for providing that assistance. But we've talked about whether we would need to do that. We haven't made any decisions yet.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your answer. And I don't know if we have any, I don't want to keep, I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to keep asking a lot of questions if we have people. I don't see anything on the Q&A box. So, and no hands, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't see any hands raised. Please do. If you have a question, raise your hand. If you would be more comfortable putting it in the Q&A, you're welcome to do that too.
And also, I just want to remind those that prefer to ask your questions in Spanish, you can put them in the chat in Spanish, and the interpreters will help us do the interpretation for those questions. And also, if you want to raise your hand and then open your microphone and ask the question in Spanish, that's why we have language access during this session, and the interpreters will help us with any questions that you might have. And in the meantime, I'm going to go to my next question. And we've heard some people say that higher minimum wages can lead to job loss. And I know Commissioner Levy gave us some context about these and the situation in Denver. That was the first city that adopted the minimum wage increase. But we've heard from small business owners that just opened their business this year or that are encountering other expenses starting in January 2024, is that they would reduce the hiring within their business, and particularly those micro businesses that depend on 1 or 2 employees to operate. How does the county plan to monitor and evaluate the impact of this increase on local employment and the small business sector, and what actions will be taken if adverse effects are observed?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I, my fellow commissioners are here with me for this listening session. And this is something, that we want to hear about. This is the reason we're doing these listening sessions, is to understand what the impacts might be here. We have not discussed what sort of ongoing input we want to get about the impact of this once it takes effect. But the law does allow us to adjust the minimum wage in the future. So if we're hearing concerns that especially the smallest businesses that you mentioned are struggling, we have the opportunity to adjust it going forward. But this is input that we're hoping to get through these listening sessions. We also have the survey that I know you've helped us disseminate, where we can get that kind of input. And we've gotten, I think we're up to about 277 responses. So we've had a lot of very good response to that. And then before we close out, we'll share other opportunities that people will have to provide that input.
Thank you so much for that. And kind of a follow-up question or comment on these. We've heard a big concern specifically from businesses in the food industry and the landscaping industry because of the changes that we are seeing in 2024. January 1st, 2024, the ordinance for banning a styrofoam for food businesses is coming into place. And then also the electrification of landscapers is affecting small business or micro businesses already. A lot of them are losing contracts with governments and big corporations because they don't have electric equipment, and that is going to implicate to have extra expenses to be able to acquire electric equipment. Even when there is support from the county on this equipment, it's a lot more expensive, and it would be really hard to see the revenue within the next year. So they have expressed that on top of the expenses that they're already having because of the other ordinances, seeing a minimum wage increase for their employees would be very impactful for them. Is there any plan on the industries that are being impacted because of other ordinances that could support them in making this a easier ongoing transition?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And this is an area where we may be able to offer some help either directly from Boulder County or through other means. So we have our Office of Sustainability, Climate Action and Resilience, which has some grant opportunities that could be available to help with the transition to electric yard equipment. I don't think that provision has been finalized in state regulation at this point. Yeah, and I was going to invite Commissioner Stolzman, who's been following that issue much more closely than I am, to gently guide me back on track if I get off track here. But the proposal that was in the legislature last year did include assistance tax credits to help with that purchase, and it also did not require an immediate phase out of existing equipment that they already have. And so we can follow up and provide more information about how that proposed rule would be implemented. As far as styrofoam containers, Again, our climate action, sustainability and resilience office, we can work with them on whether we might be able to offer some assistance there from a sustainability standpoint. So, you know, I think we can take both of those questions, very important questions, into consideration.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, the electrification of landscaping equipment is nothing set, but we have businesses that have expressed that they're already losing contracts because obviously the organizations and people that require their services prefer to go with a green company or a company that already has the equipment. So we want to make sure that if they're getting impacted now, how is that going to be in the future? And I don't know if Commissioner Ashley wants to add anything to these points since you've been looking into these very closely.
Oh, thank you. No, Commissioner Levy did a fantastic job. The discussion hasn't required people to retrofit, but I understood your point, Carla, that, you know, you're saying people are not winning contracts because they don't have equipment that, you know, doesn't pollute. And getting everybody transitioned over is really important to our organization because it's not just about winning contracts, but it is really bad. The yard equipment is very polluting for the air because it doesn't have the cleaners on the exhaust side. And so helping everybody transition over is something we're committed to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, Partners for a Clean Environment and the Oscar office had been great partners, especially with the Latino Chamber. And we've had opportunities to do educational sessions and support for those business owners. I just want to mention that because it has been great for us to partner with these offices. Thank you so much. And I don't know if we have any questions or anyone has raised their hand. No hands, okay. Oh, we have a quiet audience today. I think Commissioner Levy did a great job explaining this. That's why we don't have a lot of questions. We usually do.
We do have a hand up now.
Oh, we do now. Oh, yay. And that.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you, Marta. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Let me just park. I don't know. I don't know if I have a question, but I do have a big concern. And I just wanna have a voice in this conversation. Hold on, I'm just parking. Give me 1 second. We own, as Carla know, we own a preschool and we just opened 7 months ago. We make the very, very minimum to pay a very basic salary for 3 employees, including my sister and myself, who are the owners. So I'm very concerned that if they raise the minimum wage, we will need to go at least $3 above or $4 to be competitive. There are not teachers pretty much in the, I don't know, the availability for teachers is very minimum. We do not offer any benefits because we cannot. We want to, but we cannot. So the only way that we're going to be able to survive is impacting families. The only way that if this is going to be a mandatory thing, the only way that we can make it happen is by raising our tuition, which at the end of the day is going to impact the families. So I'm not sure how this is going to be, who is going to have how this is going to be a win-win situation, who is going to have a better outcome, because right now we have a full classroom and pretty much already 8 kids in the wait list. But again, if we have to do this increase on salary, it will have, and there is going to be inflation additionally, and we need to pay more taxes because we're paying more salaries. To me, it's like a snowball, and I am not an economics, and I'm just starting to understand about payroll and all that. But it's a very complex situation. And I don't know if we, again, as very small business owners, I don't know how it's going to look for us. So I'm very concerned about this.
And you are in unincorporated Boulder County area.
We are in Gun Barrel. Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you for the comment. This is why we're here, is to hear these impacts. So thank you. And I just want to say I'm very impressed that you could park a car and be on a Zoom call with your camera on at the same time. Well done. But no, thank you for that input. It's important for us to hear.
And let me tell you something else, because we believe in working with the community. Out of 9 kids, we serve 5 CCAP kids, which we already make around $200 less per month per kid. So by helping the community with low income, I feel that we have been punished, because it's like you get less. So again, I don't know how this is going to help us, because it's been an impact already to work with the Department of Human Services providing CCAP help for families with need. And they're getting great services, but we're getting less income for helping people in need.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
contradictory.
Yeah, I just want to point out, we have Nick Robles and Mark Rosen on here with us, and they're both in our policy office, and increasing the CCAP compensation rates is something that, needs to happen, and that's something the state government needs to do. And hearing this, we know this is the case, and we can increase the sense of urgency associated with that. And Marta has her hand up.
Thank you. Hola, Marta. What would be helpful, and I understand you're driving, you're on Zoom, you're on the way to go somewhere, but what would be helpful in these listening sessions and follow-up is really some brainstorm and ideas about what would help a small business like yours for the very specific need. And what I heard you talking about is teacher salary to be able to assist kiddos. So what would that solution be? What would be an idea? Have you seen something work for other educator facilities? So when you have an opportunity, that would be very helpful.
Oh, and
You're muted.
still on
Marta,
mute.
you're muted.
Sorry. That is, thank you for that comment. I actually have been trying to be very proactive and working very closely with Carla in this, but I am working right now with the Workforce Center, especially a person called Samara, because she said that you guys offer interns and that you will pay for that. And we also want to help teachers that maybe need experience to work with us. So that is what we have. I mean, I'm trying to reach to anybody to see how we can have like more staff, how we can grow without and specifically impact right now to our business. But we can talk later about this specific case if you guys want. But without, I mean, besides Samara from, again, the internship possibility.
Great. I'm glad you're connected with Workforce Boulder County. That would have been my next suggestion. And of course, the SPDC will be really helpful just as you develop your business and work on your business plan and long-term pieces. So
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Marta. And I see that we have a comment on the Q&A, and it is in Spanish. So I'm gonna read it in Spanish, and interpreters will help us do the interpretation to English. Does that work good? I just want to make sure that I'm not messing up with interpretation. Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Apoyo que se aumenten los salarios y que se consideren los impactos en pequeños negocios, pero nada sirve si los alquileres, servicios básicos siguen aumentando. los alquileres son muy altos y no hay control de renta. El precio de gasolina y comida siguen aumentando. Thank you so much, interpreter.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was the end of the comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you. And thank you for speaking up and providing that observation, and for especially, I mean, I think we all understand the challenges of commercial rents right now, where utilities and property taxes are bundled into the rent. So you know, that's something we're cognizant of, and we'll have to take into consideration. We do have a hand up.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Valeria. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you, Carla. I was gonna stay quiet a little, then I was like, no, I just have to after hearing Martha, you know. I own Local Burrito. I opened about a year ago here in Longmont, Colorado. So as much I'm torn apart in this discussion, you know. I'm a strong believer that all of my employees deserve to make more money, and I want to be able to get that for them. But what about us as business owners? Is there anything more of like either grants, a little bit more, you know, relief with payroll taxes as to sales taxes that we're paying? Because right now it's kind of feels like we are giving a break or a leeway to all employees, which they deserve. But what about us as business owners? Is there anything for us that might help us be successful? That is not just putting, you know, more and more and more weight on us, such as, you know, we can't go up on our prices too much because McDonald's can afford, you know, $18 an hour for a cashier, but we can't afford that. We can't afford that. People can afford $1 menu. I can't afford to sell my hamburgers for $1. So is there a leeway or is there any other going to be help that will be granted for us as business owners? Or is there just the way of give it to your employees and then you'll figure out what's coming up next for you as a business owner?
I don't think I would phrase it that way, the choices, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, I think I heard in your question about, you know, can we subsidize small businesses in some way so that they can afford these increases? And I'm gonna say I don't think so. You know, we're not in the Boulder County doesn't have the financial reserves, the resources to support, you know, new businesses such as yours. It's something, you know, we want to be able to support and celebrate someone who's going out on their own and starting up, and you're taking on a lot of risk and uncertainty, and it's really exciting. But we don't have that ability to do that. Now, are there other supports, you know, through, can we increase support for the Latino Chamber of Commerce that might be able to help you with marketing, with a business plan, with other things like that? I don't know. I did go to the wonderful breakfast that you had, and I was so impressed with all the resources and services that the Latino Chamber is able to provide. But I can't offer you an answer that is going to be very satisfying right now, unfortunately.
I think a good way to be, I think something that would be good to plan, you know, maybe going forward is also giving a support for new business owners, you know, who do have employees, or kind of feel what it is to be on our shoes.
Mhm.
You do have, so it is like you said, a lot of things that they're new to us, as you know, it's a whole new chapter in our lives that we're embracing. But then putting things on top of things, you know, pile up. And then as much as you want to feel as a business owner, then it's going to become to the point for me that I'm going to have to let go of an employee and then I can't grow my business. So maybe helping or coming up with some type of plan, even some, I don't know, just plan something that could help other, business owners or small business owners. I know like the Latino chamber with Carla, they're great, they're great at helping us and with marketing ideas and business plans. But then just also try as the county, when they're making these decisions, also take what we're feeling like in effect.
Yeah, well, and like I've said, this is why we're doing these listening sessions, because we want to know what the challenges are for all different kinds of businesses. And I've been trying to keep up with the survey responses that we've gotten. And I would say, the childcare industry and the restaurant industry are the two where we've heard the most concerns about their ability to absorb this increase. And so, we're still getting feedback through that survey. It's open through the 16th of October. And so, that's a, if you have, colleagues in the industry, please make sure that they respond to the survey so we can hear these impacts.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Valeria. And Valeria is a perfect example of those businesses that, like she mentioned, are piling up extra expenses for January 1st, 2024, not only the minimum wage increase, but also the styrofoam banning that her business is going to have to go through that change as well. So maybe that would be a good way to look into supporting these small businesses with, which I know there is already grants for compostable and recyclable materials, and we can look into that. Okay, we have a question in the Q&A, and it says, why did the state not have a small business curve out?
And I don't know. I don't know. This bill was very heavily lobbied from both sides. And that's a question, I don't have an answer to. But we don't have
sometimes for the municipalities and the counties, feels like the responsibility was left out from the state to the smaller municipalities. And Boulder County is a big county, but there are other counties that are smaller out there that are considering increasing minimum wage, and it's even more difficult because the businesses there are smaller and fewer and less employment opportunities. So yeah, it is interesting, and that's a great question on why the state didn't let us know what could we do with all of these. I don't know if there is any other questions. I don't see any hands up or anything on the Q&A. And I think, and I had a few other questions, but I think we've heard from Marta, we've heard from Valeria, and we know that we don't have answers for everything, and we know that commissioners are trying to understand what are the insights from the community and learning from these. But I don't know if any of you would like to mention how different it is from the cities, and what are the cities doing, and why is this work separated from the county and the main cities within the same county, and how they're not adopting these. I don't know if anyone has any.
Yeah, I can, from what we know, each of the city councils that we worked with on this decided that they wanted to wait until 2025, January 1st, 2025. They wanted to take some more time to do the outreach to all the affected industries. They also are commissioning an economic impact study. So they put out an RFP. Since we're not part of that, I don't know the status of that. I think Nick Robles might know where that stands right now, but But they're taking, some time here to look at, how they want to do it. It is our goal to join with the municipalities in Boulder County. That will make it a lot less confusing for everyone if there is one consistent minimum wage in Boulder County. And so over the course of the year, we'll be in close contact with those city councils to just stay in touch with what their thinking is about what they want to do in 2025. As I said at the outset, the law sets a limit on no more than 15% above the state minimum wage for being the initial local minimum wage, but that's a maximum. And so we'll be monitoring whether they are intending to increase by that full 15%, whether they're considering something else. I think we recognize that just for the ease of all the employers in Boulder County that operate in multiple locations, whose workers may sometimes work in the municipality, sometimes in unincorporated Boulder County, et cetera, that it would be desirable to have a consistent minimum wage. And but where those conversations are right now, we don't know. All what we know is that that they elected not to go forward with us this year. And there are 2 municipalities that, as far as I know, possibly 3 at this point, actually, don't have an active conversation going at this time. And we'll be staying in touch with them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I have 2 questions. One I received on an email right now, and then the other one is here in the Q&A. So I'm gonna go with the Q&A first. Would you look at some point at how employees are treated in those hospitality industry? It's true wages are relevant and a hot topic right now, and our Latino community struggles and endure work environments in which workloads are unreasonable and people fear speaking up for a variety of reasons. These conditions are impacting the well-being of our members, and people who live in fear deserve venues to share their realities to hold administrators accountable.
Yeah, thank you. That's really important. And this is the Department of Labor and Employment is available when there are complaints, especially when people are not being paid what they're due. That's called wage theft. And there is enforcement of that, both from the Department of Labor and Employment, and our local district attorney is very proactive in prosecuting wage theft. So if it has to do with failure to pay what they're due, the hours that they are working, there is a remedy for that. As far as just general working conditions, it's much harder to address those systemically. Just depending on the industry, this is where a union can be very valuable in being your advocate. So I don't know if it's, the reference was to the hospitality industry and whether they're eligible, whether there is a union that is actively organizing. But that's, that's a very powerful voice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's even when it's related, it's a total different topic that we need to make sure that we are encouraging people and making them feel empowered about speaking up and fighting for their rights, even when that sounds ironic at this time, having to fight for their rights as workers. It's something that we shouldn't be fighting for anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to this next question. I don't know if we have, I don't see anything else on the Q&A or hands raised. So I'm gonna go with this one. Are there any studies or economic analysis that have been conducted to assess potential effects of the minimum wage increase on employment levels, consumer prices, and the overall economic well-being of Boulder County?
So not specifically for Boulder County. But the study that I referenced earlier for the city and county of Denver, that's what the Department of Labor and Employment is required to do under the law, to look at just the impact on the local economies. And but we do not have that data specifically for Boulder County. I think that's what the RFP is trying to look at. I will mention that when the voters in Colorado voted overwhelmingly to increase the minimum wage in 2016, there were economic analyses done at the time to look at how that would affect the so-called cliff effect of people's incomes rising and them losing eligibility for certain work supports. And the conclusion of that study was that the value of the wage increase would outweigh the supports that were being lost. And that was done by the University of Denver. It was a study that was commissioned by the Colorado Women's Foundation. So that was a study that was done, and the 2016 increase was based on quite a large number of economic studies that compared both local governments and states that had exercised the option to increase the minimum wage and comparing their economies to others. And what it found was that an increase in the minimum wage actually benefited the economy, because low-income employees had more money to spend, and so and they spend their money locally. And so it actually put more money back into the economy and had a net positive effect. So those are just some studies that were around in 2016 on the overall effect. So I think we're being told that it's unless you have another short question, and I can try to be more concise, that it's getting close to time to wrap up.
Yeah, no more questions on my end. Thank you so much for your time. And I just want to make sure that all commissioners have time to do any last minute thoughts, anything that you would like to add. This is the time, please.
Yeah, so I did want to, of course, invite Commissioner Lujamin and Commissioner Stolzman to give some closing remarks. And then I wanted to just wrap up with the future listening events that we'll be sponsoring here.
Great, thank you, Carla. Thank you, and to your team and the partners who are hosting this listening session, but also sharing out on the other information. I want to just reflect on a few of the pieces that I heard and share with folks in regards to the decision that we made in Boulder County to move forward on minimum wage in 2024 is a piece that I heard some folks talking about. And specifically, I'll talk as the Latino on the board. We have been talked about as a Latino community as essential workers for 3 years. And prior to that, the backbone of the labor and the construction and the food industry and a whole lot of other places, hospital workers, et cetera, in this country. And so that was one of the really important pieces for me about how do we respond and take care of workers now in Colorado, where we have the ability to, and a local government perspective, to address the minimum wage. And so I just want to share with folks that the intent is to take care of workers who need to be making as close to a livable wage in Boulder County, because even at $15.69, that's not going to change the trajectory of a household right now. And how do we move forward? And so I really appreciate small business folks continuing to engage and share ideas and solutions. For me, we do have some opportunities at Boulder County to respond, whether it's with grants or the pilots or an increase in the economic vitality grants that we do give to our different chamber partners so that you all can work together and find some of those solutions. So I just want to encourage the partnership and continued conversation with this team to help us come up with some solutions, because my goal is to be attentive to workers and also be attentive to small business owners. So thank you so much for allowing us to participate in this listening session.
Thanks, Commissioner Loach. I mean, that was beautiful. And I just wanted to frame a little bit about my thinking and just thank everybody so much for their comments and giving us more information to weigh in on. So on a policy like this, the place I kind of start is like, well, what is the public interest? Why is the government intervening in this? And, you know, in this particular policy conversation, that is a very easy question to answer. Sometimes when we talk about things, that can be the hard question to answer. And then you sort of say, okay, well, then maybe this isn't something we should get involved in. But in this particular conversation with wages, we have heard from community members for several years now that costs are out of control. So housing prices, gas prices, food prices, all of the things that people have to pay for, childcare, we talked about that today. People cannot afford these things as it is. So I appreciate the comments, you know, you're trying to keep childcare affordable, but it's already not affordable for people. And what hasn't worked is the market just correcting itself, that employees will just start making more money, even though on the whole, the economy is seeing growth. And so that's why government intervention is needed, is that, you know, our lowest paid workers are not able to buy food and are making decisions about, do I pay rent or do I buy food or do I pay my medical bills? And so people are really struggling, and the percentage of people really struggling is growing and growing. And it's many of them are women and minorities with, you know, in the childcare industry, in the hospitality industry. And so we do need to step up as a community and do something. And these listening sessions will help us understand, okay, we need to do something. And we all collectively understand that. What then we need to do to balance what action we take to help people. So your comments today are really helpful. And hearing what Commissioner Lichman said is like really my frame of mind too, of like, well, what are counterbalances to the action we take to keep ripples from forming through, right? So, you know, Commissioner Levy was beautifully brought up increasing the CCAP coverage, our contribution to Latino Chamber or other development organizations. So I think, you know, there are mitigating factors we can look at to help balance things, but collectively we are going to need to do something. And it's not this won't solve everything, right? Just raising wages on its own won't solve everything. We also have to do other things. So the commissioners put forward an affordable housing ballot measure, and we'll continue to lobby at the State House for other things like rent control and other measures to help community members be able to afford to thrive in our community. So this isn't a silver bullet to save everything, right? But this is one step that's very important when you look at any study on the types of measures we need to consider. Helping people with the lowest wages is one of them. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for your comments and advice and guidance, and looking forward to working together to solving this.
Great. And I want to thank everybody for their input, and Carla, the questions that you gathered from your members were really, really helpful for us to hear as we think about the impact of what we're proposing and what we want to do going forward. I did want to just share next steps. And so we have one more employer listening session that has been scheduled. We've got Sharon King and Rachel Garcia here with the Small Business Development Center, who is going to be hosting that. And then we also have an in-person town hall on Thursday, October 12th. That's at 5:30, and that is in Niwot at the Left-Hand Grange, and that is on 2nd Avenue, which is Niwot's Main Street. You can't miss the building. It's 195 2nd Avenue in Niwot, excuse me. So we'll be presenting on this and taking comments from residents, businesses, anyone who's interested. And then lastly, we will hold a public hearing on November 2nd. And I believe that starts at noon. And we will be considering the ordinance that will be necessary in order to implement the minimum wage increase. And we'll be taking public testimony on that for as long as it takes for everybody to be heard. And if you go to bouldercounty.gov, our website, and you go to the bottom of the screen, and you can get our public hearing schedule and how to sign up for that on November 2nd. So plenty of opportunities to provide more input. Please, if you haven't responded to the survey, please do that as well. Our staff has been taking notes on the questions and comments here. And I would just want to thank everybody again for joining us and for your very helpful input. So Carla, thank you again.
Thank you so much, commissioners, and thank you for opening this space for questions. I just want to remind everyone that these so this session was organized on the county's Zoom account. So we're gonna have the recording in the next couple of days, and we're gonna post it on our social media channels, as well as the county will have it on their website. And I see here on the comments that the town hall will have Spanish interpretation available if necessary. So hopefully more members of the community are able to join and feel comfortable talking in Spanish. And also, once we have the recording of the session, we'll repost the link to the minimum wage survey so people can still respond to that one as well. And that one is available also in Spanish. So if anyone needs any help responding to that survey, because of digital barriers, the Latina Chamber is committed to support with any help that you might need. And you can come to the office and we'll help you fill it out for you. So we'll do it there with you. So thank you so much. Thank you to those business owners that attended and that were here to talk about how they feel about the topic. And thank you so much, everyone else who made this possible, and their tech support and interpreters. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you, and good night, everyone.